Hi, Michael here. In this video, I want to talk about how to learn to code with a full-time job and kids. As a software engineering team lead, I need to keep my skills up to date. For example, my team is going to be quite soon doing some projects on React. Therefore, I need to get more familiar with this framework. I also want to learn Python for my own personal reasons. However, I have a day job and I also have 2 young kids. So in this video, I want to talk about some ideas which will help you find the time to learn to code. If you're interested in learning to code or becoming a software engineer, please subscribe so you'll get notified when I put out videos on these subjects. Also, in the comments below, say I have subscribed, and I will try and get a reply back to you as soon as possible. Having a full-time job is hard. I'm sure I don't need to tell you this. The long hours, the commutes, your co-workers. When you get home, it's all too tempting to just collapse in front of the sofa and watch some TV. Trying to do anything on top of this is even harder. Where can you find the time? On top of this, if you have kids, then it's basically you're back at work when you get home. It's dealing with tantrums, illnesses, and really depending on the ages, sometimes as a parent you feel you don't even have 5 minutes to yourself. The first priority is to claw back time. Easier said than done. Once you have a little bit of time, you can use this time for learning. I think in this day and age, the number one place to consider when trying to claw back time is time spent consuming content or social media. I'm not saying completely give these things up. I like doom scrolling as much as the next person. But first, realize how much time you're spending on this. And secondly, use some of this time, not all of this time, for doing something like learning to code. So now you have little bits of time, maybe 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. I would use this for learning the theoretical aspects of code. Perhaps watching a bit of a training course, reading a bit of a book. Coding is practical, so this isn't ideal, but there is some theoretical knowledge that's important to gain, basic concepts to be understood, and you can use your little bits of time to cover those. Writing code in 5 minutes is a bit difficult at the start, so actually writing code within these little blocks of time, I wouldn't do it. But a little bit of theoretical revision or covering, that can be achieved. So now you need a longer block of time on a regular basis. Where you find that is kind of dependent on your schedule. I'll just give you my experiences. The start of the day is great. That's the best time. You feel freshest for learning. You get it out of the way, so you're more likely to do it. But it's not always possible. But for instance, after dropping my kids at school in the morning, on the days I work from home, I've got a small sort of 30-minute block before my first meeting where I will work on my own stuff, including learning to code. So alternatively, the end of the day, less than ideal, but if you're not getting it in at the start of the day, you've got to get it somewhere. A trick I use is maybe after all the kids have gone to bed, I've had my dinner, I spend about I'll say I'm going to spend 15 minutes learning, no more, and then go to bed. And sometimes I might learn for over 30 minutes or even an hour. If you can find times for studying on the weekends, that is also great. I find though, trying to go for regularity, like shorter sessions of 30 minutes to an hour every day or every other day, rather than one long session of 2 to 3 hours and then nothing for several days, is the best way to learn. So go for frequency rather than long sessions infrequently. Have small goals that encourage you rather than going for big goals. If you have a big goal, like completing a big training course, a big project, break it down or chunk it down. Maybe just completing one section of the training course a week, or a part of the project one page of a website a week, or even smaller. When you're doing something on your own, the hardest part I find is keeping up the motivation. So you need to be getting little wins very frequently. Otherwise you're just going to lose motivation and quit. Next, don't spend too long doing tutorials. Maybe do one basic beginner one. Then try and build something on your own. Look for ideas online, or just build something you might find useful. For example, a to-do list. I find the quickest way to learn a technology is to do a project. Recently, I had to learn how to use Linux. Never used anything but Windows at work or at home for pretty much all my life, but because I had to, for work, for a project, I started by looking up common commands. Then as I was going along doing my project, I was asking colleagues, how do you do this in Linux, or how do you do that? It's painful and it was frustrating for a few days, but I found myself really learning about Linux. So try and push yourself by doing a project. I hope those tips help. Bear in mind, learning anything when you're in full-time employment, when you have children, is really hard. So be kind to yourself and stick with it. If you're interested in learning to code or in software engineering, please check out my other videos and see you on the next video.